Papa! Papa, look! 2-year-old Leo Thorne pulled free from his father's grip and ran forward, his small boots splashing through puddles. Leo, wait! But the boy had already reached her, tugging at her sleeve and looking up at her face. Papa, his voice was certain. Papa, that's my mama! Kyle Thorne's heart stopped. Every wall he'd built over 3 years came tumbling down in that single moment. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Now, let's jump right back in. The rain turned the October afternoon cold and gray. Kyle checked his watch. They had time for a quick walk before heading home. This was supposed to be simple, safe, normal. Papa, I'm cold. I know, buddy. Kyle crouched down, fixing Leo's hood with gentle hands. The boy's cheeks were pink from the cold. 5 more minutes, then hot chocolate at home. With marshmallows? With marshmallows. Kyle smiled despite himself. Leo could always make him smile, even on the hardest days. The park was quiet, just a few joggers and people on benches. Bodyguard 1 stood a few feet behind them with an umbrella. Bodyguard 2 watched from up ahead. This was how Kyle lived now. Careful, protected. But Leo made it worth it. The boy laughed at silly jokes and asked questions about everything. He made Kyle feel human again. Then Kyle heard it, a soft, broken sob cutting through the rain. She's here, Papa. Leo pointed toward the path. That lady is crying. Kyle followed his son's finger, and the world stopped. She was sitting on the wet path about 30 feet away. Her body curled up small. Her clothes were torn and muddy. Her hair hung loose and wet. Her feet were bare. And her face. Kyle knew that face. That's not possible, he whispered. Bodyguard 1 moved closer. Boss, you okay? Kyle couldn't answer, couldn't breathe. Serafina. Sarah. The woman he'd loved. The woman who died 3 years ago. The woman whose funeral he'd attended with an empty coffin. She was supposed to be dead, but then she looked up. Her eyes found his across the rain, and Kyle saw recognition there. Real recognition. Pain and shock and desperate hope. Leo broke free and ran. No, Leo! But the boy was already there, reaching for the woman with his small arms. Papa, she's crying! Help her! Kyle forced his legs to move. His bodyguards followed, alert and ready. They were watching his face, seeing their boss come undone. Step back, son. Kyle's voice shook. But Papa, she needs help. Leo, please. Kyle reached for his son, gentler this time. He couldn't think about anything except the woman in front of him and whether she was real. He crouched down beside her, close enough to see small cuts on her face, close enough to see her hands shake, close enough to see that the eyes staring back at him, wide and scared and heartbreakingly familiar, belonged to Serafina. Not a trick. Her. Get her up, Kyle said quickly. We need to get her somewhere warm, now. Bodyguard 1 lifted her carefully. She didn't resist, just leaned against him like she didn't have the strength to stand. Where are we taking her, boss? The safe house on 5th, the one with the medical room. Kyle picked up Leo. And call ahead. I want the medic ready. Leo squirmed in his arms, trying to see the woman. Papa, where are we taking the lady? Somewhere safe. Is she sick? Yes. But the doctors will help her. Will you stay with her? She looks scared. Kyle's throat tightened. We'll see, buddy. The drive was quiet. Sarah sat in the back of the SUV, staring out the windows at streets she hadn't seen in years. Kyle watched her, seeing how nervous she was, how her hands gripped the seat. Leo had fallen asleep between them, worn out from the day. When he stirred awake, he looked at Sarah with wide eyes, making sure she was still there. Then, without anyone telling him to, Leo reached out his hand. Don't be scared, the boy said softly. Papa will help you. Sarah's breath caught. Her hand moved toward Leo's, and their fingers touched. She pressed his small hand to her cheek like it was precious. "Thank you," she whispered. Kyle felt something warm in his chest. Something he'd thought was gone forever. His hand came to rest on Leo's coat, close to where Sarah's hand lay. They didn't touch, but they were close. The safe house appeared ahead, clean, quiet, protected. When they stopped, Sarah climbed out slowly, still holding Leo's hand. They stood on the sidewalk together, and Kyle came to stand beside them. "Tomorrow," Kyle said. "I'll bring Leo back tomorrow morning, I promise." "Tomorrow," Sarah agreed, her voice hopeful. Leo looked up at both of them and smiled. Kyle's hand moved to his son's shoulder, right next to Sarah's. Their fingers were close now, almost touching. "She's not going anywhere," Kyle said firmly, "and neither are we." Sarah smiled through her tears, a real smile. Kyle nodded to his bodyguard, who helped Sarah inside. She looked back once, holding Kyle's gaze, then disappeared through the door. "Papa?" Leo yawned. "Are we going to be okay now?" Kyle picked up his son and held him close. "Yes, buddy. We're going to be just fine." Kyle felt something warm in his chest, something he'd thought was gone forever. For a few seconds, he just stood there, watching Sarah disappear into the safe house. Then training kicked in. He needed to figure out what had happened, how she was alive, and what came next. "Get her settled," Kyle told Bodyguard 1. "Make sure she's comfortable. The medic should check her over completely." "Already on it, boss." The drive to the safe house took 12 minutes. Kyle sat in the back with Leo on his lap, his mind racing through questions. If Sarah was alive, who had died in that fire? Who had faked the evidence, and why show up now after 3 years? Leo stirred against his chest. "Papa, the lady seemed really tired." "She is, buddy. She's been through a lot." "Will she be okay?" "Yes, we're going to make sure of it." Kyle pulled his son closer. That was a promise he intended to keep. The safe house was a converted building in a quiet neighborhood. Clean, secure, and stocked with everything they might need. Kyle had used it twice before, and both times everyone had walked out safe. His security officer met them at the entrance. "Building is secure, boss. The medic is upstairs waiting." "Good. Keep 2 guards on each entrance. No one in or out without my say." "Understood." Inside, the building was clean and well-maintained. The medical room was on the 3rd floor, bright and equipped like a small clinic. Sarah was already there, lying on the bed while the medic checked her vital signs. She was awake now, her eyes clearer than before. Kyle set Leo down by the door. "Stay here for a minute, okay?" "But I want to see her." "Just give me 1 minute, then you can come over." Kyle's voice was gentle but firm. He crossed to the bed, stopping a few feet away. The medic looked up. "She's cold and dehydrated. Some bruises and cuts, but nothing serious. She needs rest and good food. She'll recover." "Can she talk?" "Yes, she's doing better now that she's warm." Kyle nodded and waited until they were alone except for his bodyguards. Then he looked at Sarah's face. She looked back at him with nervous hope. "Serafina." His voice was calm. "Do you know who I am?" Her eyes focused on his face. "Kyle," she whispered, her voice rough but steady. The sound of his name hit him hard, but in a good way. Like hearing a song he'd forgotten he loved. "Boss?" Bodyguard 2 looked up from his laptop. "Facial recognition confirms it. Serafina Vasco. Last seen 3 years ago. She's really her. Run a full background check. I need to know everything." Kyle's eyes never left Sarah's face. "On it." "Papa!" Leo's voice broke through. The boy had crept closer to the bed, reaching for Sarah's hand. "Papa, can I hold her hand now?" Kyle looked at his son, then at Sarah. Her expression was so hopeful, so gentle. He took a breath. "Yes, buddy. You can hold her hand." Leo's face lit up. He grabbed Sarah's hand with both of his small ones. Hi, I'm Leo. What's your name? Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. I'm Sarah. It's so nice to meet you, Leo. You're really pretty. Even with the sad face. She laughed, a soft sound that made Kyle's chest ache. Thank you, sweetheart. Kyle watched them together and saw it immediately. The same eyes, the same smile. The way Leo tilted his head was exactly like Sarah used to do. Boss. Bodyguard 2 cleared his throat. Initial search shows nothing suspicious. No criminal activity, no red flags. She's clean. Keep digging anyway. Sarah looked at Kyle. I know you have questions. I'll tell you everything. Just please don't send me away yet. I'm not sending you anywhere. Kyle's voice was firm. But I need answers, starting with where you've been for 3 years. She took a shaky breath. They took me. The night at the coffee shop. I never made it inside. Someone grabbed me, and when I woke up, I was locked in a basement. Kyle's jaw tightened. Who? Your second in command. He said he wanted your organization. He needed you broken so your people would turn against you. Sarah's voice got stronger as she spoke. He faked everything. The video of me with your enemy, the evidence, all of it was fake. The explosion? His way out. He wanted everyone to think I was dead so you'd never look for me. She paused. But he kept me alive. As insurance, he said, in case he ever needed leverage. Kyle's hands clenched. 3 years. She'd been locked away for 3 years while he'd believed the worst of her. Why now? He asked. Why are you free now? He died 6 months ago, heart attack. The men guarding me got careless. I escaped last week. She looked down at her bare feet. I've been hiding since then, living on the streets. I didn't know if you'd believe me. Leo climbed onto the bed and hugged Sarah. Don't be sad. Papa believes you. Right, Papa? Kyle looked at his son's trusting face, then at Sarah's hopeful eyes. He thought about the pressed flower in his desk drawer, the photograph he'd kept hidden. 3 years of grief that had never quite felt right. I need proof, he said, but his voice was softer now. Show me your left shoulder. Sarah's hand went to her shoulder. Slowly she pulled down the hospital gown. There was the scar he remembered, the bullet graze from years ago. And next to it, a newer mark, but the old scar was still visible. He tried to burn it away, she said quietly, so no one could identify me. But he didn't burn deep enough. Kyle stared at the evidence. His Sarah, really her. I believe you, he said simply. Her face crumpled with relief. Thank you. But Sarah, things are complicated now. My life, our life, it's not safe yet. Kyle ran a hand through his hair. You'll stay here where it's protected. Good security, everything you need. And Leo and I will visit every day. Every day? Hope filled her voice. Every day, starting tomorrow morning. He looked at Leo. Right, buddy? Right. We'll have breakfast together. Sarah reached for Kyle's hand, hesitant. He let her take it. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was strong. 1 week, Kyle said. 1 week to rest and heal. 1 week for us to figure this out. Then we'll see what comes next. Together? She asked. Together. The word hung in the air between them, full of possibility. Kyle squeezed Sarah's hand once, then gently pulled back. He needed to think clearly, and touching her made that difficult. Leo, come on. We need to let Sarah rest now. But Papa, I just got to meet her. And you'll see her tomorrow, first thing in the morning, remember? Kyle picked up his son. She needs sleep. Look how tired she is. Leo looked at Sarah and his face softened. Okay, but you promise we'll come back? I promise. Sarah smiled at them both. I'll be here. I'm not going anywhere. In the car on the way home, Leo chattered excitedly about Sarah, asking a dozen questions Kyle didn't have answers to yet. When they finally got home, Kyle tucked his son into bed and sat on the edge, smoothing back his hair. "Papa?" Leo's voice was sleepy. "Why did the bad man take Sarah away?" Kyle's chest tightened. "Because some people do bad things, buddy. But she's safe now. We're going to make sure she stays safe." "Because we're a family?" "Yes, because we're a family." Leo smiled and closed his eyes. Within minutes, he was asleep. Kyle sat there a while longer, watching his son breathe, thinking about how everything had changed in a single afternoon. Back in his office, Kyle poured himself a drink and opened the bottom drawer of his desk. The pressed jasmine flower was still there, faded and fragile. He'd looked at it 1,000 times over 3 years, always with anger, always with the bitter taste of betrayal. Now he looked at it and felt something different. Regret, hope, fear that maybe this second chance was too good to be true. He let his mind drift back to the beginning. 4 years ago, when life had been simpler. He'd met Sarah at a charity event he'd only attended for business reasons. She'd been wearing a white dress and had the kindest smile he'd ever seen. She was a nurse, completely outside his world, and she'd had no idea who he really was. Their first real date had been at a botanical garden. He'd felt ridiculous walking through flowers, but Sarah had made it fun. She'd laughed when he couldn't name any of the plants, then tucked a jasmine bloom behind his ear. "There," she'd said. "Now you look approachable." 6 months of stolen moments, secret meetings, late-night phone calls. She'd figured out what he did eventually, but instead of running, she'd stayed. "I see who you are underneath," she'd told him. "That's the man I love." A year later, she'd asked him to leave it all behind. "We could start over," she'd said. "New city, new names, new life. Just us." He'd wanted to. God, how he'd wanted to. So he'd started making plans, quietly arranging their escape through trusted contacts. Only his second-in-command had known the full details, the man Kyle had trusted with his life. The night everything fell apart, Sarah had been across town meeting a realtor about properties in their new city. Kyle had been at the warehouse, going over final details, when his second-in-command had walked in with a laptop. "Boss, you need to see this." The video had shown Sarah in what looked like a rival's office, handing over a flash drive. Audio of her voice promising information in exchange for money. Kyle's first instinct had been to call her, to ask her to explain. But then the warehouse exploded. 4 men died, including his second-in-command. They'd found remains in the rubble. Dental records identified one body as Sarah. Kyle had been in another room when the blast hit, far enough away to survive with minor injuries. At her funeral, he'd stood over an empty coffin and felt nothing. The grief had already turned into something else, something cold and hard that helped him survive. But now, sitting in his office with that pressed flower in his hand, Kyle realized how many things hadn't made sense, how the explosion had been perfectly timed. How convenient it was that his second-in-command died before Kyle could question him. How the evidence against Sarah had appeared so quickly, so completely. He'd been played, manipulated by someone he trusted, and Sarah had paid the price. A knock on his office door pulled him from his thoughts. Bodyguard 2 entered with a tablet. "Boss, I've got more information. Your former second-in-command had multiple offshore accounts we never knew about. Large deposits starting months before the explosion. And there's a connection to Viktor Kozlov, the rival who was supposedly meeting with Sarah in that video." Kyle set down his drink. "What kind of connection?" "Money trail, lots of it. Looks like they were working together to take you down. And Kozlov is still out there." Kyle's voice was calm, but inside he was already planning. Still operating. Still thinking he got away with it. "What do you want us to do?" "Find everything. Every connection, every transaction, every person involved. I want to know exactly who helped destroy my life 3 years ago." Kyle stood, walking to the window. "And then we're going to have a conversation with Kozlov. A very direct conversation. Understood. Boss. After bodyguard 2 left, Kyle pulled out his phone and looked at the time. Nearly midnight. Too late to call Sarah. But he wanted to. Wanted to hear her voice and make sure she was really there, really safe. Instead, he sent a text to the security team at the safe house. Status report. The response came quickly. All quiet, she's sleeping. Ate a good dinner. Doctor says she'll be fine with rest. Kyle felt relief wash over him. She was safe. She was healing. Tomorrow they'd have breakfast together, all 3 of them, and start figuring out how to build something from the wreckage. He looked at the jasmine flower one more time, then carefully placed it back in the drawer. Tomorrow he'd ask Sarah if she remembered giving it to him. Tomorrow he'd tell her he'd kept it all this time. Tomorrow he'd start making up for 3 years of believing a lie. Tomorrow couldn't come fast enough. Kyle barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Sarah's face in the rain, saw Leo reaching for her hand, saw 3 years of mistakes staring back at him. At 5 in the morning, he gave up on sleep entirely and went to make coffee. By 6, Leo was awake and bouncing with excitement. Is it time yet, Papa? Can we go see Sarah now? Almost, buddy. Let's get you some breakfast first. But I want to eat with Sarah. You promised. Kyle smiled despite his exhaustion. You're right, I did promise. Go get dressed and we'll bring breakfast to her. 20 minutes later, they were in the car with bags of fresh pastries, fruit, and juice. Leo talked the entire drive, planning what he wanted to tell Sarah, asking if she liked dinosaurs and trucks and all his favorite things. What if she doesn't like the same things as me? Leo asked, suddenly worried. Then you'll learn about new things together. That's what families do. The safe house looked peaceful in the early morning light. Kyle's security team nodded as they entered, reporting that everything had been quiet overnight. Sarah was awake, sitting in the small living room on the 2nd floor, wearing clean clothes that actually fit her now. Her hair was brushed, her face washed, and though she still looked tired, there was color in her cheeks. She stood when they entered, nervous and hopeful at the same time. Hi, she said softly. Hi. Kyle held up the bags. We brought breakfast. Leo ran to her immediately, wrapping his arms around her waist. Good morning, Sarah. I brought you a chocolate croissant. Papa says they're the best. Sarah hugged him back, and Kyle saw tears in her eyes, but they were happy tears this time. Good morning, sweetheart. That sounds perfect. They settled around a small table by the window. Leo chatted non-stop, telling Sarah about his toys, his favorite books, and how he could count to 20. Sarah listened like every word was precious, asking questions and laughing at his jokes. Kyle watched them together and felt something settle in his chest, something that felt almost like peace. So, Sarah said during a pause in Leo's monologue, tell me about your life, Leo. What do you like to do? I like dinosaurs and building blocks, and Papa reads me stories every night. Leo took a big bite of croissant. What do you like? I like flowers and reading and... She paused, looking at Kyle. I used to like gardens, places with lots of plants and quiet paths to walk. We have a garden at home, Leo announced. Papa doesn't know the names of the flowers, but they're pretty. Sarah laughed, a real, genuine laugh that made Kyle's heart skip. That sounds just like him. You remember that? Kyle asked quietly. The botanical garden? Our first date? Sarah's smile was soft. I remember everything about that day, Kyle. How nervous you were, how you pretended you weren't, how you kept that flower I gave you. I still have it. Her eyes widened. You do? In my desk drawer. I couldn't throw it away. They looked at each other across the table, and Leo's head swiveled between them. You went on a date? Like in the movies? Yes, buddy, Kyle said. A long time ago. And you liked each other? Very much, Sarah answered, her voice warm. Then why were you gone so long? Leo's question was innocent, but it cut deep. Sarah's smile faded slightly. I didn't want to be gone, sweetheart. Bad people made that happen. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving again. Promise? I promise. They spent the rest of breakfast talking about easier things. Sarah asked about Leo's favorite foods, his bedtime routine, what made him laugh. Kyle found himself relaxing, watching the natural way she connected with their son. There was no awkwardness, no hesitation, just warmth and genuine interest. After they ate, Leo insisted on showing Sarah the picture book he'd brought. They sat together on the couch. Leo snuggled against her side while she read to him in a soft, soothing voice. Kyle stood by the window, giving them space but unable to look away. This was what he'd lost 3 years ago. This simple, beautiful possibility of family. Kyle? Sarah's voice pulled him from his thoughts. Would you like to join us? He crossed the room and sat on Leo's other side. The boy immediately leaned against him, creating a bridge between his parents. They finished the book together, taking turns reading different character voices, making Leo giggle. When the story ended, Leo yawned. I'm sleepy now. That's okay, buddy. You can rest here for a bit. Kyle started to get up, but Sarah reached across Leo and touched his arm. Stay, she said. Please, we have time. So Kyle stayed. Leo fell asleep between them, his head on Kyle's lap, his hand holding Sarah's. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just breathing, just being together. Thank you, Sarah finally whispered, for believing me, for bringing him here, for giving us this chance. I should have believed you from the start, Kyle said. I should have questioned everything. Instead, I spent 3 years being angry at a ghost while you were... He couldn't finish the sentence. You didn't know. How could you have known? I should have trusted my heart instead of the evidence. Kyle looked at Leo's sleeping face. When I saw him reach for you in that park, something in me just knew. He knew before I did. Children see clearly, Sarah said. They don't have all our walls and fears in the way. I want to know everything, Kyle said suddenly. Not just about what happened to you, but before that. What you were thinking, what you were feeling when you asked me to leave with you. I want to understand who we were before it all went wrong. Sarah shifted slightly, careful not to wake Leo. I was scared, she admitted. Scared of your world, scared of losing you to it, but I wasn't scared of you. I saw who you really were, underneath all the armor. You were kind to me, gentle. You made me laugh. You made me want to be better. You were already good, Kyle. You just didn't believe it. They talked for hours while Leo slept, sharing memories and filling in gaps. Sarah told him about her favorite moments from their relationship, the little things she'd held on to during the dark years. Kyle told her about Leo's birth, how terrified he'd been, how becoming a father had changed everything. I wish I'd been there, Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. I wish you had too. But you're here now. That's what matters. When Leo woke up, they played simple games and drew pictures. The afternoon passed quickly, filled with laughter and warmth. Kyle found himself relaxing in ways he hadn't in years, letting his guard down, allowing himself to hope. As evening approached, Leo asked, Can Sarah come home with us, Papa? Kyle and Sarah exchanged glances. Not yet, buddy, Kyle said gently. Sarah needs to stay here where it's safe for a little while longer, but we'll come back tomorrow, and the day after, every single day. But why can't she come now? Because, Kyle searched for the right words, because sometimes we need to take things slow to make sure they're done right. We want Sarah to be completely safe, and home isn't quite ready for her yet. It wasn't the complete truth, but it was true enough. Kyle needed to deal with Kozlov and anyone else involved before bringing Sarah into his home, needed to make sure there were no threats waiting. Leo accepted this with a child's resilience. Okay, But tomorrow we come back first thing, right? First thing, Kyle promised. As they prepared to leave, Leo hugged Sarah tightly. I love you, Sarah. She held him close, her voice breaking. I love you too, sweetheart. So much. Kyle stood by the door watching them. When Sarah looked at him over Leo's head, he saw gratitude and affection and something that looked a lot like love. See you tomorrow, he said. Tomorrow, she agreed. In the car on the way home, Leo was quiet for once. Then he said, Papa, I think we're going to be really happy. Kyle smiled. I think you're right, buddy. That night, after Leo was asleep, Kyle sat in his office reviewing the information Bodyguard 2 had compiled. The more he read, the more pieces fell into place. Viktor Kozlov had been working with Kyle's former second-in-command for at least 6 months before the explosion. Money transfers, secret meetings, all carefully hidden. But what concerned Kyle most was the recent activity. Kozlov had been making moves, bold ones, in the past week. Almost like he knew something was happening. Kyle's phone rang. His head of security. Boss, we have a situation. Kozlov held a press conference this afternoon. He's claiming you've been targeting legitimate businesses. He's got documentation, shipping records, enough to cause problems. Kyle's grip tightened on the phone. What kind of problems? The kind that brings federal attention. And boss, he mentioned something about a woman. Didn't name her, but he said you're holding someone with information about your operations. He knows she's alive. Kyle stood, pacing to the window. How? We're still figuring that out. But if he knows, he'll try to use it. Make you look unstable, dangerous. Could turn your own people against you if he plays it right. After the call ended, Kyle stood at the window for a long time thinking. Kozlov knowing about Sarah changed everything. She'd become a target again, a weakness others could exploit. And worse, Leo could become a target too. The smart move was clear. Send Sarah away. Get her out of the city, somewhere far from here with new identity and protection. Keep his sons safe by keeping them separate. It was logical, practical, the right decision for everyone's security. But the thought of telling her made his chest ache. The next morning, Kyle was quieter than usual on the drive to the safe house. Leo noticed immediately. Papa, are you sad? No, buddy. Just thinking. About Sarah? Yes. Good thinking or worried thinking? Kyle glanced at his son in the rearview mirror. Worried thinking. But I'm working on it. When they arrived, Sarah was waiting with a smile, but it faded when she saw Kyle's face. What's wrong? Let's get Leo settled first. They went through the motions of breakfast, but the easy warmth from yesterday was gone. Leo felt it too, going quiet and watching his father with concerned eyes. After they ate, Kyle turned to his bodyguard. Can you take Leo to look at the books in the other room? Give us a few minutes? But Papa, I want to stay with Sarah. Just for a little bit, buddy. We need to talk about grown-up things. Leo's face scrunched with worry, but he took the bodyguard's hand and left the room. The moment they were alone, Sarah spoke. Just tell me. Whatever it is, just say it. Kyle took a breath. Viktor Kozlov knows you're alive. He's making public moves, causing problems, and he's dangerous, Sarah. To you, to me, to Leo. So what are you saying? I'm saying maybe it would be safer if you weren't in the city, if we set you up somewhere else, somewhere he can't find you. The words tasted bitter. Just until I deal with him. Just temporarily. Sarah's face went very still. You want me to leave? I want you safe. I want Leo safe. We just found each other, Kyle. After 3 years, we just got our family back, and you want to send me away again? Not away. Just somewhere protected until the threat is gone. And how long will that take? Weeks? Months? Another 3 years? Her voice rose slightly. I've been apart from my son for his entire life. I don't want to miss one more day. I don't want you to either, but what? But you're scared. Join the club, Kyle. I'm terrified. Every moment of every day. But I'm not running anymore. Before Kyle could respond, the door burst open. Leo stood there, tears streaming down his face, his small chest heaving. He must have been listening from the hallway. No! The boy shouted. Papa, you can't send her away. I won't let you. Leo, buddy, come here. Kyle reached for him, but Leo ran past him straight to Sarah. Don't go! Leo wrapped his arms around her. Please don't go. You promised you'd stay. Sarah held him tight, looking at Kyle over their son's head with tears in her eyes. I promised, she said firmly, and I keep my promises. Kyle watched them together and felt something break inside him. Not in a bad way. More like a wall finally coming down. He'd been so focused on threats and dangers and keeping everyone safe through distance and control. But looking at Leo's tear-stained face and Sarah's determined expression, he realized something. They were stronger together than apart. You're right, Kyle said quietly. Both of you, you're right. Leo's head snapped up. We are? Yes. Kyle crossed to them and knelt down so he was at Leo's level. Sarah's not going anywhere. Neither are you. We're staying together, and we're going to figure this out as a family. Really? Leo's voice was small, hopeful. Really? I was scared, and when I'm scared, I try to control things, but that's not fair to either of you. Kyle looked at Sarah. I'm sorry. I'm still learning how to do this. How to be part of a family again. Sarah reached out and touched his face, gentle. We're all learning, but we learn together, okay? No more making big decisions alone, no more trying to protect us by pushing us away. Together, Kyle agreed. But Sarah, I need you to understand. Kozlov is dangerous. If you stay, things are going to get difficult. There will be threats, maybe violence. I can protect you, but it won't be easy. I've survived 3 years of hell, Sarah said simply. I think I can handle difficult. Leo hugged them both. So we're really staying together? Forever? Kyle and Sarah looked at each other and something passed between them. Not quite love, not yet, but trust, partnership. The beginning of something real. Forever, Kyle said. Forever, Sarah echoed. The rest of the morning was lighter. They played games with Leo, read books, and talked about what would happen next. Kyle explained that Sarah would need to stay at the safe house a little longer, just until he made sure their home security was updated. But he promised daily visits, and this time it wasn't about keeping them apart. It was about doing things right. How long until I can come home? Sarah asked. A few more days, maybe a week. I want to make sure every vulnerability is covered, every potential threat is addressed. Kyle squeezed her hand. But you will come home, that's a promise. I believe you. That evening, Bodyguard 2 pulled Kyle aside. Boss, I've been tracking Kozlov's movements. He's getting bold, but he's also getting sloppy. Making mistakes. If we move carefully, we might be able to turn this around. What do you need? Time, resources, permission to dig deeper. You have all three. Find me everything. I want to know his weaknesses, his pressure points, his secrets. If he wants to threaten my family, he's going to learn what happens when you back a wolf into a corner. Bodyguard 2 smiled. Understood, boss. Later, as Kyle drove Leo home, his son was chattering happily about Sarah, already planning what they'd do tomorrow. Kyle listened and felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. They were going to be okay. Kozlov was a threat, but Kyle had faced worse and survived. And now he had something worth fighting for again. Not an empire built on grief and anger, But a family built on love and second chances, he could work with that. Over the next 3 days, Kyle fell into a rhythm. Mornings with Leo at the safe house, afternoons handling business, evenings back with Sarah for dinner. Slowly, carefully, they were building something that felt like family. On the 4th morning, Kyle arrived to find Sarah and Leo already sitting together on the couch, deep in conversation. They didn't notice him at first, and he paused in the doorway to watch them. "So you really didn't want to leave Papa?" Leo was asking. "Never," Sarah said firmly. "I loved him. I still do. I wanted us all to be together, somewhere safe and happy." "Then why did the bad man say you left?" "Because he lied, sweetheart. Some people lie to get what they want, and he wanted to hurt your papa." Leo was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he said, "Papa keeps a picture of you in his desk. He thinks I don't know, but I've seen it." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "He does?" "Yes. And he talks to it sometimes when he thinks I'm sleeping. He tells you about me, about things we did that day. I think he missed you a lot." Kyle's throat tightened. He hadn't realized Leo knew, hadn't realized his son had been listening to those midnight confessions. "I missed him too," Sarah said softly. "Every single day. They told me terrible things, Leo. They said your papa had forgotten me, that he was happy I was gone. They said you—" Her voice broke. "They said you didn't survive, that I'd lost you before I ever got to hold you." "But that was a lie too, right?" "The biggest lie of all." Sarah hugged him close. "Because here you are, perfect and wonderful and mine." Leo pulled back to look at her seriously. "Did they hurt you? When you were locked up?" Kyle stepped forward quickly. "Leo, that's not—" "It's okay," Sarah interrupted gently. She looked at their son with calm honesty. "Yes, they hurt me sometimes. It was scary and sad. But I survived because I had hope. Hope that someday I'd be free. Hope that somewhere out there you and your papa were okay." "Were you brave?" "I tried to be. Some days were harder than others. But I never gave up, because giving up meant never seeing you. And I had to see you." She touched his face softly. "I had to meet my son." Leo threw his arms around her neck. "I'm glad you didn't give up. I'm glad you found us." Kyle sat down beside them, and Leo immediately climbed into his lap, creating their now familiar bridge between his parents. They sat together quietly, the weight of the conversation settling around them. "Papa," Leo said after a while, "when is Sarah coming home for real? To our house?" Kyle exchanged glances with Sarah. "Soon, buddy. I'm making sure everything is safe first." "But you said that days ago. How much safer does it need to be?" "Leo, he's right," Sarah said. "Kyle, we can't live in fear forever. At some point we have to just move forward." "I know. I'm working on it." Kyle ran a hand through his hair. "Bodyguard 2 is tracking Kozlov's movements. We're gathering information, finding weaknesses. When we have enough, we'll make our move." "And then?" Sarah asked. "And then I deal with him, permanently." Kyle's voice was firm but not harsh. "He threatened my family. That doesn't go unanswered. I don't want you getting hurt." "I won't. I'm careful." He squeezed her hand. "But I need to finish this before we can really start over, before I can bring you home and not worry every second that someone's going to try something." Sarah nodded slowly. "I understand. Just don't take too long, okay? We've already lost 3 years. I don't want to lose any more time." "You won't. I promise." Leo looked up at both of them. "When Sarah comes home, can she sleep in the room next to mine? So I can say goodnight to her?" Kyle and Sarah both smiled. "Yes," Kyle said. "She can sleep wherever she wants." "Good." Leo yawned, settling more comfortably between them. "Because families are supposed to be together. That's what makes them families." Out of the mouths of children, Kyle thought. His 2-year-old son understood what Kyle had been struggling with for days. Family wasn't about perfect safety or ideal circumstances. It was about choosing to be together, despite the risks. "You're absolutely right, buddy," Kyle said. "That's exactly what makes them families." The words stayed with Kyle all afternoon. That evening, he returned to the safe house alone. Leo was with a trusted caretaker, and Kyle needed to have a conversation with Sarah, without little ears listening. Important things that had been waiting too long to be said. She was sitting by the window when he arrived, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. She looked better each day, healthier, stronger, more like the woman he remembered. "Hi," she said, turning when he entered. "Where's Leo?" "At home. I wanted to talk to you alone." Kyle sat down across from her. "There are things we haven't discussed yet. Things I need to know." Sarah nodded, her expression calm. "Ask me anything. The 3 years you were held captive. I know it was terrible, but I need details, locations, names, anyone who helped guard you, anything that could help me understand who else was involved. I can give you some of that, but Kyle, they moved me around constantly. Basements, warehouses, abandoned buildings. I never knew exactly where I was. And the guards changed. Some were cruel, some just indifferent. I don't know their real names." "What about your escape? How did you get away?" Sarah took a breath. "After your second-in-command died, the guards got disorganized. They argued about what to do with me. Some wanted to let me go. Others wanted to keep me as leverage in case you ever discovered the truth. Last week, one of them left a door unlocked during an argument with another guard. I just ran. Didn't think, didn't plan, just ran." "And you came straight to the city? Why not go somewhere else, somewhere safer?" "Because you were here. Leo was here. Even if I didn't know about Leo yet, I knew I needed to find you, to tell you the truth." She looked down at her hands. "I didn't have a plan beyond that. I was living on the streets, hiding during the day, searching for information at night. Then that day in the park, I saw you, saw Leo, and everything made sense." Kyle leaned forward. "Sarah, there's something I need to know, and I need you to be completely honest. Is there any proof? Anything physical that could help me prove what happened to you?" "Like what?" "Documents, recordings, anything that shows who was involved or what they did." She shook her head slowly. "I'm sorry. They were careful. No phones around me, no computers I could access. Just locked rooms and guards who barely spoke." Then she paused. "But there is one thing. I don't know if it helps, but there's something only you and I would know. Something no one else could possibly fake." "What?" Sarah's hand went to her collarbone. "Do you remember the night you proposed to me?" Kyle's breath caught. He'd never told anyone about that. It had been their secret, a private moment no one else knew about. "We never got married," Sarah continued softly. "We never even told anyone we were engaged. But you gave me a ring that night. A small silver band with 3 tiny stones. You said they represented past, present, and future, our 3 chances at happiness." "I remember." Kyle's voice was rough. "You put it on my right hand instead of my left because I was still working at the hospital and didn't want people asking questions. I wore it every day until the night they took me." She reached into her pocket and pulled out something small. "One of the guards found it in my clothes and was going to throw it away. I begged him to let me keep it. Told him it was from my grandmother, worthless except to me. He kept it for months, then gave it back one day when he was feeling generous." She opened her palm. There, tarnished and worn but unmistakable, was the ring Kyle had given her 4 years ago. His hands shook as he reached for it. He'd bought it from a small jeweler downtown, spent half a month's earnings on it, and given it to her on a rooftop at midnight. She'd cried and said yes, and kissed him like she'd never let go. You kept it, he whispered. It was all I had of you, of us. When they told me you'd forgotten me, I looked at this ring and knew it was a lie. Because the man who gave me this could never forget. Kyle turned the ring over in his fingers. Inside the band, almost too small to see, were their initials, KT and SV. He'd had them engraved as a surprise. No one else knows about this ring, he said. Not even my closest people. It was just us. Just us, Sarah agreed. Something in Kyle's chest finally released. The last bit of doubt, the final wall of protection, crumbled away. She was telling the truth. She'd always been telling the truth. And he'd wasted 3 years believing a lie when the woman he loved had been suffering alone. I'm sorry. The words came out broken. God, Sarah, I'm so sorry. I should have known. Should have looked harder, questioned more. Instead, I just believed the worst and moved on like you meant nothing. You didn't know. The evidence looked real. I should have trusted my heart instead of evidence. My heart knew something was wrong. I just didn't listen. Sarah took his hands in hers. We can't change the past, Kyle. We can only move forward. And I don't want to move forward carrying anger and regret. I want to move forward building something new. How can you forgive me so easily? Because holding on to anger only hurts me. Because you're trying now. Because our son needs both his parents whole, not broken by bitterness. She squeezed his hands. And because I love you. I never stopped. Kyle pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. They stayed like that for a long time, just breathing together, letting the weight of 3 years finally lift. When they pulled apart, Kyle slipped the ring onto Sarah's finger, right hand, just like before. I never stopped either, he said. Loving you. I tried, but I couldn't. Sarah smiled through tears. So what now? Now we finish this properly. I deal with Kozlov, we bring you home, and we start over. The 3 of us, together. Together, Sarah agreed. And for the first time in 3 years, Kyle believed it was actually possible. The next morning brought unexpected news. Bodyguard 2 called early, his voice tight with urgency. Boss, you need to get to the office. We found something big on Kozlov. Kyle was at headquarters within 20 minutes. His security team had spread documents and laptop screens across the conference table, all showing financial records, communications, and surveillance footage. Talk to me, Kyle said. Kozlov made a mistake, Bodyguard 2 explained. He's been bragging, got comfortable thinking he won 3 years ago, and now he's getting sloppy. We have recordings of him talking about the setup. Not enough for police, but enough for our purposes. Show me. They played the audio, Kozlov's voice, recorded at a private meeting 2 weeks ago, laughing about how easily Kyle had been manipulated, how the fake video had been created, how the explosion had been timed perfectly, how keeping Sarah alive had been insurance that, fortunately, he'd never needed to use. Kyle's hands clenched into fists. He knew. This whole time, he knew she was alive. Yes. And boss, there's more. He's planning something. We're not sure what yet, but he's been moving resources, positioning people. Whatever it is, it's happening soon. Then we move first. Kyle's voice was calm but deadly. I want surveillance on him around the clock. Every meeting, every phone call, every movement. And I want our people ready. When he makes his move, we'll be waiting. What about the woman and the kid? If this goes sideways, they stay protected. Double the security at the safe house and add another team at my home. Nothing gets through. Kyle looked at his gathered lieutenants. Kozlov wanted a war 3 years ago and got one. Now he's going to finish what he started. But this time, I'm ready. The meeting continued for hours, planning strategies and contingencies. When Kyle finally left, it was late afternoon. He drove straight to the safe house, needing to see Sarah, to ground himself before the storm hit. She was in the kitchen with Leo, teaching him how to make cookies. Flour dusted their clothes and Leo's face was smeared with chocolate. They were laughing, completely absorbed in their task. Kyle stood in the doorway watching them, memorizing the moment. This was what he was fighting for. Not territory or power or revenge, just this. His family, safe and happy and whole. "Papa?" Leo spotted him and ran over, leaving floury handprints on Kyle's dark pants. "Look, we made cookies! Well, Sarah made them and I helped." "I can see that," Kyle smiled, ruffling his son's hair. "They look delicious." "They'll be ready in 10 minutes, Sarah said, wiping her hands on a towel. She looked at Kyle's face and her smile faded slightly. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Actually, things are finally moving in the right direction." He glanced at Leo. "Buddy, can you go wash your hands? When the cookies are cool, we'll try them." Leo scampered off to the bathroom. The moment he was gone, Kyle turned to Sarah. "I found proof. Audio recordings of Kozlov admitting what he did. It's not enough for the authorities, but it's enough for me to know exactly who to target." "When?" Sarah asked simply. "Soon. Maybe days, maybe weeks. He's planning something, so we have to move carefully." Kyle took her hands. "But Sarah, when this is over, when Kozlov is dealt with and the threats are gone, I want you to come home. Really home. Not just visits and safe houses. I want you in our house. In our life, permanently. I want that too." Then it's settled. 1 more week. 7 days to let my team finish gathering information and set everything in motion. 7 days of daily visits with Leo, letting you two build your relationship. Then, win or lose, you come home. We face whatever comes next as a family. Sarah threw her arms around him. "Thank you for believing me, for fighting for us, for giving us this chance. I should be thanking you for surviving, for never giving up, for still loving me after everything." Kyle held her tight. "I don't deserve you, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to." Leo came running back, hands dripping wet. "Are the cookies ready yet?" They both laughed, breaking apart to tend to their eager son. They spent the evening eating warm cookies, playing games, and pretending for a few precious hours that the outside world didn't exist. When it was time to leave, Leo hugged Sarah extra long. "Only 1 more week until you come home," he said. "I'm going to count the days." "Me too, sweetheart." As Kyle drove Leo home, his son chatted about decorating Sarah's room and all the things they'd do together. Kyle listened and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Real, solid hope. The kind that didn't waver or doubt. They were going to make it. All 3 of them. Together. The week passed in a blur of activity. Kyle's team worked around the clock gathering intelligence on Kozlov while Kyle spent every possible moment with Sarah and Leo. Each day brought them closer, healing wounds that had festered for 3 years. On the 6th day, Bodyguard 2 delivered the news Kyle had been waiting for. "We've got him, boss. Kozlov's been embezzling from his own organization. His people don't know yet, but when they find out, he's finished. We also have evidence linking him to 3 unsolved cases that the authorities have been investigating. Anonymous tips are already being sent. How long before it hits? 48 hours, maybe less. His world is about to collapse." Kyle nodded slowly. "Good. Make sure our people are clear of the fallout. I don't want anyone connected to us when this goes down." "Already handled. By this time next week, Kozlov will be fighting legal battles and his own people. He won't have time to think about you, much less threaten your family." That evening, Kyle took Leo to the safe house for what would be their last visit there. Tomorrow, Sarah would come home. Really home. The thought made Kyle's chest tight with anticipation and nervousness. "Is tomorrow really the day?" Leo asked for the 100th time. "Tomorrow is really the day," Kyle confirmed. When they arrived, they found Sarah packing her few belongings. She looked up as they entered. and her smile was radiant. "I can't believe it's actually happening," she said. "Believe it." Kyle crossed the room and took her hands. "Tomorrow morning, we come get you, and you never have to leave again." Leo bounced excitedly. "I helped Papa set up your room. It has a big window and soft blankets, and we put flowers in a vase because you like flowers." "That sounds perfect, sweetheart." Sarah knelt down and hugged him. "Thank you for making me feel so welcome." "You're my mama. Of course you're welcome." They spent the evening talking about logistics and plans, where Sarah's room would be, how they'd handle meals and schedules, what rules Leo would need to follow now that both parents were present. It felt surreal and wonderful and terrifying all at once. As darkness fell and Leo dozed on the couch between them, Sarah turned to Kyle with serious eyes. "Are you sure about this? Once I'm in your home, in Leo's daily life, there's no going back. We'll be a real family, with all the complications that brings." "I've never been more sure of anything." Kyle's voice was steady. "The past 3 years taught me what life looks like without you. It's cold and empty and wrong. I don't want that anymore. I want mornings with Leo talking too loud and evenings with all of us together. I want the complicated and messy and real. Even if I'm not the same person I was before, even if the captivity changed me, I'm not the same person either. We've both been broken and put back together differently. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we get to figure out who we are now, together." Sarah leaned her head on his shoulder. "I like that idea." The next morning arrived bright and clear. Kyle and Leo showed up at the safe house with the car packed and ready. Sarah was waiting by the door, her small bag in hand, looking nervous and excited. "Ready?" Kyle asked. "So ready." The drive to Kyle's home was filled with Leo's chatter and Sarah's quiet wonder at seeing the city in daylight, free and safe. When they pulled up to the house, a modest but comfortable place in a secure neighborhood, Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "This is home," she whispered. "This is home," Kyle agreed. Leo grabbed her hand and pulled her inside, eager to show her everything. The living room with its comfortable furniture, the kitchen where they'd make meals together, and finally her bedroom, decorated simply but thoughtfully with soft colors and fresh flowers by the window. "Do you like it?" Leo asked anxiously. "I love it." Sarah picked him up and spun him around. "I love all of it." They spent the day settling Sarah in, showing her where things were, establishing new routines. It wasn't perfect. There were awkward moments and uncertain pauses, but there was also laughter and warmth and the slow, steady building of something real. That night, after Leo was tucked into bed, Kyle and Sarah stood in the hallway between their rooms. The space felt heavy with possibility and unspoken feelings. "Thank you," Sarah said softly, "for not giving up on us, for fighting to bring me home. Thank you for surviving, for being strong enough to make it back to us." Kyle took her hand, the one wearing his ring. "I know we have a long road ahead, learning to trust again, building our relationship from scratch, figuring out how to be parents together. It won't be easy. The best things never are." "No, they're not." He squeezed her hand gently. "But we have time now, all the time we need. No more running, no more hiding, no more being apart." "Just us," Sarah said. "Our family, our future." "Our future," Kyle echoed. Down the hall they heard Leo call out sleepily, "Mama? Papa? Are you still there?" They looked at each other and smiled. Then, together, they walked to their son's room. Leo was sitting up in bed, his hair mussed and his eyes drowsy. "We're here, buddy," Kyle said. "We're both here." "Good." Leo lay back down, satisfied. That's how it's supposed to be. Families stay together. Sarah and Kyle each kissed his forehead. Then they stood in the doorway watching him drift back to sleep, their hands finally touching, fingers intertwined. They had survived the impossible, They had found their way back to each other through darkness and pain and 3 years of separation. And now, finally, they were home. All three of them. Together. The beginning of something beautiful. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, wait until you see what's coming next. It's even more powerful and inspiring than you can imagine. So don't go anywhere. Click on that video showing on your screen right now to dive into another amazing story that will absolutely blow your mind. Trust me, you won't regret it. You won't.